Hello students. Today I'm going to do the concept of law of demand. Now this is one of the basic microeconomic concepts. It's a matter of common observation. Whenever we are going to market to buy something, we always look at its price. So this means that when we demand a quantity of some commodity X, quantity demanded of commodity X, we look at its price of X. There can be number of other factors which we may consider, like price of other commodities, what are the substitutes, or I may look at my personal likes and dislikes, so tastes. Quantity demanded of anything may also depend upon weather conditions. And one more very important one, I should have mentioned it earlier, the amount of money income that a household has. So all these, and there are many other factors which affect quantity demanded of any commodity or any product. So we can write this whole relationship in a simple mathematical expression, just by adding an equation sign and adding an f here. Oh my god, did I do something wrong? Yeah, here's it. And add these in parentheses. I can write it again to make it clear. Quantity demanded of X is a function of price of X, price of other commodities, related goods, tastes of the household, the weather conditions, the money income, etc. Now, but we cannot, come to a law of demand if we consider all these factors at one time. So we have to make our situation very simple, and we have to make it simple, we have to keep certain factors constant. So we assume that all the factors other than the price of that particular commodity, we keep them as constant. So just by putting a bar, we show that these factors are constant. So if we take all these factors constants, what are we left with? Quantity demanded X is a function of price of that commodity, ceteris paribus. Ceteris paribus in Latin language means keeping other things constant. And what these other things are, other factors actually, like these ones, these are called shift factors. We will discuss them in some other video. So this is our relationship between quantity demanded and price. Now, just as I said that when we go to the market, we look at the price of a certain commodity. Usually when we see that price of certain commodity is high, what do? We tend to buy lesser quantity of that commodity. When I write QD, it means quantity demanded. It's just a notation. You can write small q and d. Now, and P obviously stands for price. Now, when price is high, we tend to buy lesser quantities. It can be the opposite situation. When prices are low, we tend to buy greater quantities. It's let me give you a very simple example. If I go to the market and there is sale on some item which is of a lot of use to me, and there is 50% off on it, I may end up buying double the quantity. So what am I actually doing? I'm actually following the law of demand, that lower the price, higher the quantity that I'm going to buy. Now I can show this concept with the help of a table or a schedule, and later on move on to a graph showing the demand curve. Before we move on to that, so far we have arrived at the statement of the law of demand. This is basically law of demand, but never reproduce it in your exams with these arrows. These are just for teaching you people. You can write the full statement saying that when prices are high, people tend to buy lesser quantities and vice versa, keeping other things constant, or just write ceteris paribus, it would mean the same. Now let's assume I want to see the prices of eggs in a market and how much quantity people are demanding there, let's say per week or per day. So in order to have my demand schedule, I'll be having, let me make 3 columns. Sorry, I'm so used to Blackboard, it's difficult to write on a piece of paper. Okay, let me have my different situations here, and over here I will write the price in rupees, let's say per dozen, as I am taking eggs in my example. And over here I will write quantity demanded per week. It can be day, it can be month, whatever you find easy or suitable. Just make it realistic, that is the key. Now what is my first situation? Let me discuss 3-4 situations. Situation A, B, C, D and E. Let me assume that prices of eggs were 50 rupees a dozen, then it rose to rupees 100, then 150, then 200 and then 250. Now assume if I am suppose if I am consuming eggs, my behavior is definitely going to change when its price is rupees 50 and when it rises to rupees 250. At lower prices I will tend to buy more, or the whole community, all the consumers will tend to buy more. So let's say at rupees 50 there were 100 dozen eggs demanded in a particular market. At rupees 100 the demand dropped to 80 dozens, and at rupees 50 it became 60 dozens. Further increase in price caused a further reduction in demand, rupees 40, and the price was rupees 250, the demand dropped to 20 dozens. So these are different situations that I have assumed, and I have called them such a scenario A, B, C, D and E. Now I can show this scenario in a graph. And what do I do when I draw a graph? I need to have a y-axis and an x-axis. I will take quantity demanded on x-axis, my origin, and price on y-axis. Now when I'm drawing a graph, I have to take a scale. I have to look at the minimum and maximum values in both the variables. So over here 50 till 250 and 20 till 100. So since I'm taking price here and my maximum value of price goes to 250, so I should have my final value should be 250. So it is convenient according to the space that I am using, that if I write 50, 100, 150, 200, 250, and over here I need a maximum value till 100, so I can have 20, 40, 60, 80, 100. Now of course this could have been 5, 10, 15, 20, and I could have taken it to 250. That would have been too much labor and this one is again according to my convenience. I could have written 40, 80, 120, but that would have been too short, so I had to take appropriate gaps. Now let me draw these combinations. So my first combination is at price 50, quantity demanded was 100. So here I trace my price from here, since I have taken price here. So at 50, quantity demanded was 100. This is my scenario A. Now when now come to scenario B, when price was 100, quantity demanded was 80. Situation B. Now again, when price rose to 150, people dropped their demand to 60. Scenario C or situation C. When price rose to 200, demand further fell to rupees 40, scenario D. And the final one, at 250, the demand fell to 20 dozen eggs per week. This is E. Okay, so these are all my scenarios. Now, how do I get my demand curve or graph to show my demand for dozen of eggs per week that are demanded at a certain list of price? I join all these points together and I get this negatively inclined or negatively sloped line, which is my demand curve. So I can label it as D dash. I could have labeled it small d dash, but since I have used small d over here, so it's not appropriate to use same notation. So I have taken capital D dash. And I can also, label it like this, demand curve. I can also add, this part to it. Quantity demanded is a function of price. Okay, now even if you don't know what variables are being taken on x-axis and y-axis, just by looking at the graph, you should be able to tell what is going on. Any person knowing a little bit of math should be able to do that. Now, if a graph goes downwards, just like this, from left to right, it is called negatively inclined or negatively sloped. So whatever variables there are, one should quickly understand that the two variables have negative relationship with each other. Now, what do I mean when I say negative relationship with each other? This means that one variable, when one value increases, the other's value decreases. And this is exactly what's happening here. When price is high, people are demanding lesser quantities of eggs, and vice versa. So just by looking at this, you should be able to identify that whatever these variables are, they have a negative relation since the graph slopes downwards from left to right. So this is what basically our law of demand is. One thing that I have to tell you, that if a question comes up in your exams saying what is law of demand, show with the help of table and graph, these are all the details that you need to add. Also, you have to have assumptions. I discussed the assumptions, but very briefly I'll repeat them. Okay, so how do you attempt this question in your exams? First of all, you give the definition. It can be followed by the assumptions. And what are the assumptions? Your first assumption can be, assumptions are merely all the things that you have kept constant. So these are the factors you have kept constant. You will mention these in your assumptions. Number one will be prices of related commodities are kept constant. Number two can be the tastes or likes and dislikes of a person is not changing. Number three can be the weather is assumed to be same or it's not changing, and the income of the consumer does not change. These are your assumptions. So first you give your definition, then you give your assumptions. Then you start explaining the relationship with the help of any hypothetical example that I have given here. And then you draw your hypothetical example with the help of figures, first in a form of a table, and then you draw a graph with that, and then you explain this in statements, that what have you taken on x-axis, which variable have you taken on y-axis, what is A, B, C, D. Well, these are different situations. Basically, whatever I have spoken verbally to you will come in your explanation. And if you have time, you can add what are those called? Yes, exceptions to your answer if time allows, or if the question is asked. In exceptions, you will mention all the points, yeah, all the situations where the law of demand is not applicable. Okay, now let's discuss all those points where law of demand does not hold. The first is the case of rare articles or prestigious goods. Now these can be you know, old coins, old stamps, unique pieces of jewelry, unique paintings. Now, whenever the prices of such articles increase, people who are used to buying these kind of commodities, they tend to buy more and more. So they are basically not following the normal law of demand. Second can be the situation of price expectations. Now, before explaining what happens when you are expecting the prices to change in the future, we need to know what's the normal behavior. As I discussed, normal behavior is that when price rises, we tend to buy a lesser quantity. Okay, so this is our normal behavior. But just imagine that if I expect the price of anything to even further rise in the future, like if something is worth rupees 100 today and it's going to become 200 in the future, this is what I'm expecting. What am I going to do now? I am going to run to the market and I'm definitely going to try to buy that commodity when it is still costing me rupees 100. Okay, so when I expect prices to further rise in future, my current behavior, or in present day my behavior, is going to purchase larger quantities. And of course the opposite also holds true. If I expect prices to further fall in the future, I will hold my purchase today, and I would want to enjoy the reduced prices after a week or a month, and then I would make use of my money, every single penny of it. So what am I going to do? I will reduce my quantities today. Okay, so this is how we do not actually follow law of demand when we are expecting the prices to change in the future. Now, third point can be ignorance of the consumer. Now, sometimes it may happen that a consumer is simply not aware of the general price level of a commodity, and he ends up buying something at high price. So, in such situations, law of demand does not hold. He may find out later that he has been charged really high, but that's that, and for that time he has been robbed of money, and he has become an exception to the law of demand. Now, fourth situation can be of giffen goods. Now, giffen goods are types of inferior goods. Okay, just remember that giffen goods are types of inferior goods. Now, what happens in case of giffen goods is that if their prices fall, we tend to reduce their quantity as well. So this is an abnormal behavior. Now, let me explain it with the help of an example. Let's say a poor person buys bajra. Okay, I've spelled it right, bajra. And if its price falls, is he going to end up buying additional quantities of bajra? Obviously not. He is kind of saving some money. His real income has increased a little bit. The amount that he is saving from bajra is now actually going to be spent on some other commodity. He may start buying potatoes or some additional amounts of wheat. Okay, so we can see that when the price of bajra reduced, he also reduced the quantity demanded of it, and he was kind of making some saving, and he is now spending that saving on some other commodity. And that's about it. With this, we come to the end of our law of demand and the few topics related to it. Thank you.